On this episode of the People Stack podcast, we interviewed Shobana Radhakrishnan. She is a senior director of engineering at Google TV. This was a delightfully rich conversation about a variety of different topics around how to be an even better technical leader, and also a very honest and open conversation about diversity in the workplace as well. So we talked about building a culture of safety and how that doesn't happen by accident. We talked about overcoming feeling stupid, asking the dumb questions. They're not actually dumb, by the way. We talked about dealing with naysayers, people who might feel like they're just constantly against you. How do you do that? How do we cultivate confidence? How do we fix things? Right? Like, what is the best way to approach that? How do we deal with our fear? How do we move outside of our comfort zone? This was a huge piece of Shobana's success in her career. Really, talking about taking ownership and how to evangelize and influence, and how to train interviewers. That it's really important to train the people who are interviewing for people who are going after the jobs that you have open. It's so important. And also how women employees don't need crutches, that there's this bias that women need more help, so we need to give them these crutches, and that's actually ultimately disempowering, and both women and men do this. So it's, again, delightfully rich opportunity for you to take a look, an honest look at, all right, how can I be even better? How can I grow even more as a leader? And I know that Shobana is going to inspire you to do that. Enjoy this conversation. Hello, everyone. We are excited about interviewing Shobana Radhakrishnan today. She is Senior Director of Engineering at Google TV. Welcome, Shobana.
Thank you, Jen.
It is it's so awesome to have you here. Rob and I are excited about delving into a bunch of topics around engineering leadership and diversity and career paths and lots of fun stuff. So to set the stage, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Let our listeners know what it means to be a Senior Director of Engineering at Google TV, at least as far as what you can divulge, and what you guys are up to there.
Sure thing. To explain what Google TV is trying to solve, let me talk to you about what I call the Friday evening moment. So think of a long work week. You're going home, trying to kick up your feet on the sofa in your living room or family room, just trying to watch something relaxing and entertaining with your loved ones. And you turn your TV on and you spend maybe 20, 30 minutes or even longer just looking for something good to watch. And at the end of it, many times we're just like frustrated and give up. Or finally you find something and then you finally watch it. Data shows that plenty of users find themselves in this situation. So the idea behind Google TV is, what if we took this frustration out of the users and take the hard work out and give them the easy part? So how can we bring the goodness of Google, whether it's the Google search engine or recommendations, infrastructure, but to make content consumption easier and more personalized for users? That's what Google TV tries to solve. And we look at it full stack. So right from the technical layers, which get the device to come up or go to sleep, depending on what the user wants, all the way to the goodness and the magic that the consumer can see on the screen. And how do you do all this complex processing very snappily and bring all the variety, but make it all very quick and reliable? That's what Google TV tries to do. So I'm very proud to work with the superstar engineering teams that actually make this happen. So that's my role.
That's excellent. That's excellent. I know for so many people, myself included, and I think I could speak for Rob as well, that downtime, usually at the end of the day, sometimes it's weekends, right? Like just with your screen, right? Like with my shows, I want to watch my stuff. And especially like after you finish a show, like, hey, what else do I watch? And you can just be endlessly scrolling for hours, and then it's bedtime already. So that's awesome. And so just to let people know, I know I don't want to make any assumptions. However, I think that most people who are listening are at least familiar with Google TV in terms of like what the product is and what it might look like. So from my understanding, it's literally a TV. So like is that like the main product that Google TV sells that on the consumer end, why people would be familiar with it?
Yes, it's the overall, I would say, the TV experience. So the Google TV as an experience can run on a Chromecast device, it can run on a Sony, it can run on TCL. So we have several partners who make TVs that run the Google TV experience. That's what people get when you walk into a Best Buy or your favorite in-person or online store. You look for the Google TV aisle, you might find a number of different brands that carry the Google TV experience and operating system.
Excellent.
So,
Rob?
Shobana, would you call this sort of an extension of what the Chromecast was intended to be, and just like the next evolution of that, or something entirely separate that just also happens to run on a Chromecast or a TV with it's already been embedded?
Chromecast with Google TV is next evolution of the previous Chromecast device. Also, Google TV being the operating system and the software platform, I would say it's also the next evolution of Android TV. So this Google TV is built on Android TV and just brings that personalized, immersive experience on top of it.
Yeah. Okay. And I hope we're allowed to talk about competitors in terms of the landscape here and defining the landscape. Would Apple TV be your biggest competitor?
Google TV, we should see it more like a platform. So we actually are the platform/operating system that gets a TV working. And so we work with all apps like Amazon Prime, Hulu, Netflix. All these apps have their contents brought on the Google TV platform. So Apple TV is also an app. So a number of apps, including YouTube, including other apps. The Roku channel is on Android TV as well. And so the best way to see Google TV or Android TV is as a platform that then enables both first-party and third-party apps and the content within these apps to reach their target users.
Got it. It's the tech that makes everything else happen. In other words,
right.
Yeah,
that's right. It's the glue that brings the TV hardware to the user experience. It's the glue that brings all the content apps to their users. That's one way.
Got it. Wonderful. Thank you for walking us through that. And you started talking about your role. Let's just talk about it a little bit more so that we can get to know each other a little bit more and our listeners can get to know you a little too. So what do you see as your main desired outcome of your role? Like at the end of the day, at any given work day, what makes you really happy? Like, okay, cool, I achieved that today. And then let's say for a quarter, okay, Q1, we achieved this. Like what really gets you fired up about that role and about the outcomes you're delivering?
I think it's really two simple things. One is build cool products that everybody loves across the world and work with cool teams. For me, those are the two things that matter. So if I wake up and at the end of the day or the week or the quarter, I feel like we had some really great idea discussions, made a bunch of progress towards building a cool product or bringing the next innovation to consumers, I feel really good. And if my teams are happy doing it, working with each other, that's the A. Those two things together to me is the A grade.
Excellent. I love it. So let's dive right in. We had communicated beforehand about some potential topics that you'd like to talk about. So let's dive right into those. The first one that I know is definitely going to resonate with our audience and absolutely aligns with our message at People Stack is overcoming feeling stupid. Ask the dumb questions. So let's talk about this. This could be in the context of large meetings, right? Raise your hand, ask what you think might be actually a stupid question or a dumb question, overcoming the fear of that, building the confidence in that. So let's paint a picture here. Let's imagine that I just, I said that, and imagine one of our listeners saying, oh God, yeah, that's totally me. I've been sitting in large meetings so often, whether it's a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting, and I had this inkling to say something, but that spider sense or my intuition is saying, oh, I probably should raise my hand and mention this thing, whatever it might be, but there's something that's holding me back. What would you say to that person to overcome the fear and in sharing what's on their heart, what their intuition is telling them to say?
I would say two things. One is, oftentimes when you ask, if you think it's a dumb question, or probably everybody other than me in this meeting knows the answer to this, more often than not, there are probably other people in the meeting that were thankful that you asked that question. Because that was probably on the minds of others in the meeting. It's many times I've heard that. I'm so glad you asked this, or this, I was also not sure of this, and so on. The second is just liberating yourself with the thought of what's the worst that can happen. You ask a question, somebody answers it, and people move on. It's not like people have some kind of sticky memory where they're just thinking about you and your question beyond the meeting time. More often than not, nobody's thinking about it after that, and you got your answer. So what else could happen if you ask a question? Those are the two things I would say.
Yeah. Can you think of examples when you, like maybe either it's specific examples or general examples of times you asked quote unquote stupid questions that you might have thought were stupid, but actually turned out to be great questions and you were glad you asked them?
Maybe I'll give two. I can think of two examples. One is way back, a couple of decades ago when I was moving to the US as a student. And then the other one is much more recent. So I'll talk about both. The first one is just, when you move across the oceans. I grew up in India and I moved here to pursue a master's in computer science. A lot of the systems are very different. Everything from how you create a bank account to how you get a credit card to even how you get your license, like very basic things that everybody of your age group knows, everyone around you knows, but you just don't know because you just crossed an ocean to get here. And so the very first week during my student orientation, one of the things I had to do was create a bank account for myself. And so I had to ask for very basic things. Who do I even talk to and how do I approach the line? And I saw people in front of me in the line just going and doing their thing. Nobody was asking, as far as I could tell, basic questions. But I had really basic questions, like who do I even talk to, which is the form I need to fill out. And in India back then, it could take a couple of weeks to get an account created, whereas here it's minutes, right? And so I was actually asking even questions like, so when will I get my account, the book, like the checkbook and all of that, and when will it get created? How many weeks or something very specific like that? And they said, it'll be done right away. And so for me, that was the very first thing is I just felt like everyone else had grown up here, but maybe there were other immigrants, but that was my mental frame of reference. I thought I was the only one who was the quote unquote outsider and I could be asking basic and stupid questions, but I didn't mind because I had something to get done and I was the only one who could do it. So
there you go.
I was forced to be dumb, but very comfortable because it got done that day, what I needed. The other one is almost every day I feel I always learn something from my team that makes me feel like, how did I not think about that? Like those moments are actually very common, more common for a leader to run things. Oftentimes I might ask something, even recently I've asked something basic about the data platform. Like, how does this part work or that part work? Even though I've been at Google a few years, I don't feel like I need to know everything in the architecture to ask that question. It's okay for me to ask that question. And a lot of times your team is actually happy that you're curious at the double click or triple click level. So such moments almost happen once a week for me, where I'm asking what could be basic questions, but they may or may not be. Because I'm always curious about how something works, I know I'm not the expert in every part of the system. Someone on my team is. So I'm always asking them questions, so.
Yeah, that's so refreshing to hear. And I know that lots of our listeners, all stripes and sizes and backgrounds, it's going to resonate with them to hear you say, there are things that I'm not an expert in. There's the things that I'm an expert in, and then there's things that I'm not. And I'm going to ask the questions about the things that I'm not. One of the things so I want to peel the layers back here a little bit, because one of the things that our clients from all different backgrounds, male, female, early career, later career, different skin colors, you name it, different ethnicities, backgrounds, that one of the things that most of them come to us with is, I want to build my confidence. And I think that's what's beneath this question of, I don't want to get judged. I don't want to ask the stupid question. I don't want people to know that I'm not an expert in this thing, that there is some lack of recognition of their own expertise. And the more that you can recognize your own expertise and really just own that, the more you're just going to be like, hey, ask stupid question, new girl, right? Because it's like, hey, there's absolutely a place where I can add value. And even though we just met you, Shobana, I can tell that you're someone who's been cultivating that confidence throughout your life, throughout your career, in the way that you're describing this, right? The idea of there's nothing to lose and everything to gain, and here's my expertise and here's your expertise. So what do you do to cultivate confidence within yourself? Do you have particular practices around that? Or is it more of a, just kind of everyday go with the flow kind of a thing? How do you view confidence building?
Maybe a couple of things. I'll say that influenced me in my childhood. Maybe I can mention that, and then a few things that have remained habit. Actually, watching my mom navigate a lot of relationships and situations, and like she is a problem solver at heart. So whether it's social situations or academics or whatever she was taking on, I feel like she never hesitated to knock on a door to get an opportunity opened. Because what's the worst that can happen? The door either gets opened or it doesn't. And if it doesn't open, you're going to knock on another door and then do what you set out to do. And so I think just observing her throughout my childhood influenced me to think of not hesitating to, knock on doors or speak to people or approach people about ideas or opportunities. That's one thing. And the second is, I think, just becoming over time cognizant of what things and people boost your confidence, make you feel better, and what people and things make you feel a little more negative, a little less optimistic. And surrounding yourself with people and things and events as much as possible that actually boost your energy and confidence versus the others. So I think just developing an eye to that, because you don't have to please everybody to be successful in your career or happy in your life. You just have to please the people who matter to you. And even if you're the most popular president of the best country in the world, there will be naysayers. So there is no one, no matter how accomplished they are, can claim they've never had naysayers in their life. So just being cognizant of this is not just you or your situation. Everyone is going to have people that disagree with them or that even dislike them, right? And it's okay. It's about just making sure you're clear about who you are, what you are from the inside, what makes you tick, and surrounding yourself with people and situations that move you positively in that direction. So just kind of developing an eye for that, because all of us have had situations, including me, where you just had a meeting and you feel like, man, that meeting didn't go as well as I wanted, or that interaction or that interview. Not everyone aces every single interview in their life. So being able to just be reflective of, does this really matter to me? Does this interaction really matter, or should I move on? How do I bounce back and keep on? And that's not something you just kind of automatically have, but once you develop an eye for it, then eventually it feels very obvious. So you kind of bounce back quicker over time because it's automatic. It's almost automatic in your brain.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Let's talk about naysayers a little bit. I think that's an interesting, fascinating topic that if we can really develop our own discernment for who's really a naysayer and who's not, and then, okay, that person's really a naysayer, and how do I deal with that? That's a really great opportunity for personal growth and professional growth as well. So how do you deal with naysayers? What do you make it mean when there's someone who's a true naysayer?
I think the first step is just to attach validity with whatever they're expressing. I feel like irrespective of what a person's intent is in what they're expressing to you or about your project or about your idea or whatever it may be, associating a validity from at least a certain angle. They're saying it because they're coming at it from a certain angle. So just reflecting on what is this person's incentive in expressing this disagreement. Because it's easy also to dismiss true alternate opinions as naysayer just because it makes us feel good. So it's important not to do that either, because your idea is never going to be always the best idea. So why is someone giving you a counterpoint or shooting your idea down, irrespective of how they're expressing it? Just kind of filter the emotion and the how to say what are they trying to express and why. What is their point of view? What's their incentive in saying that? And a lot of times, I feel if you really look at it with the benefit of doubt, a lot of people are disagreeing with your ideas or saying it's not practical or it's not something that's relevant to our product. Maybe there's some truth to it, at least from their angle. So really taking the time to think through it and then saying, can I get them more comfortable by modifying my idea to meet middle ground or what I'm expressing? It's always good to start with that angle first, I feel. And most of the time you feel that, especially when working with colleagues, there is some shared goal. They're on your team, in your company, whatever it may be. And a lot of times the reason for why they're quote unquote naysaying may come from a broader interest than you may be thinking. So first give validity and then look at are there valid reasons and should I be altering my approach to make the mutual combination work. The second is it's possible that you're in a position where there may be some other incentive where it could be politics, for example. Luckily, I haven't had to deal with a lot of politics in most of the places I've worked in, but it is possible that there is a reason their organization cannot go with what you're saying because what you're saying may be good for the company, but not good for their organization. Okay. A very common thing is automation versus manual testing. I'm taking a very basic example that everyone will. Like if you're pushing hard for let's automate 70% or 80% code coverage by X weeks, then there's something that all the testers who are purely skilled in manual testing may be nervous about. Does this mean that my group is going to get smaller? My work is not relevant? What's going to happen? Again, I'm taking a super simple example so we can drive home this point. And then still, if you attach validity with it, then you can actually talk to them about maybe how they can develop the skill sets needed to build automation. And so just creating that environment where naysaying can be converted into a positive buy-in also exists. But beyond that, if it's true naysaying and not engaging in problem solving, then you just have to look at how do you navigate forward while managing the situation around you, but not give too much importance and get bogged down.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that we talk about with our clients and on this podcast all the time is the concept of neutrality. And I love how the concept, particularly in relating to other people, and I love how the concept of validity absolutely overlaps with this, that in order to treat someone in a neutral manner, you're not one-upping them, you're not one-downing them, you're not making them wrong, you're not making them right. It's just, okay, I'm going to look at this from complete neutrality. It's asking the question, is there anything valid in what they're saying? That's such a fabulous approach to this. And then look for the gold nugget, right? That's what I'm extracting from what you're saying. Is there some golden nugget that I can perhaps learn from in what they're saying? And there could be 2 or 3 of them, and that's awesome. The answer is yes, yeah, absolutely. Have a conversation around it. Get curious around it. If the answer is no, then exactly like you said, again, couldn't agree more. Let it go. Right? Not always easy to do. Going to acknowledge that, but it's not worth it to focus on it if this person's just here to argue and not actually wanting to add value. So, yeah, such an important topic. Exactly. So, Rob, where do you want to go with the conversation? Where are we going next?
So many places. All right. So a couple of things that you had said, Shobana, that I wanted to touch on. So back with your earlier comment about feeling like you were out of touch with the local zeitgeist, out of touch with what the local norms were coming in as a new person to the US. Given how sharded our current space is. A lot of people don't have reliable touch points from one person to the next because we're not watching the same channels anymore. We're not listening to the same music anymore. We're not going through the same life events anymore. What are you seeing on your teams, and how are you fostering sort of that connectedness so that everybody feels like they are now, as part of your organization, really just home?
I'm so glad you asked that question because I've often noticed that whatever applies to leading teams also applies to being a good part of society. And
It
I've learned a
does.
lot of management goodness from my two teenagers, one of whom is not a teenager anymore. He's older. um, I think one of the things I in fact, went through an allyship training recently. And one of the things is how do you create a safe space for people on your team? Just really actually answering the question and walking the talk versus here's a document I wrote or here's a website about how great we are as teams. It's about how do you actually create a safe space. And that starts with the ability to give counterpoints and contradictions, irrespective of your level of training. I think that's the first step. And there are actually many mechanisms, but it's all about the behavior of the leader. I feel like that's the part that's contagious is even if you're in an all-team meeting with a large audience and somebody counters what you just said, how do you react in that moment? So to me, it's more how a leader operates in unexpected moments that shows whether they truly want to create a safe space. And even small opportunities like that, then allow everyone else to embrace it. If she or he can do it, then any of us could give the safe space, be wrong, be humble, and so on. And so I feel like that is where it starts. That's one. And the second is actually demonstrating that you altered your decision based on input provided by someone. Even if you felt strongly about something, you were proposing something, and you heard from the team and you actually altered the course. And being able to transparently share that. I was thinking this, but I was wrong, and I heard this input from all of you, so I'm changing the course. Just being able to have that transparency in both directions goes a long way to create a safe space. It's not about what document you can write about safe space, but what you do on the ground, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm totally with you with leading by example. When it comes to, so you talked about the example of bringing your curiosity to different things and asking questions, even if it may seem like a stupid question in the moment. How do you encourage that amongst your team and make it feel like a place where they're safe to do that?
Um, I think it's an important part of a team culture fabric that you have to consciously create. It doesn't happen by accident. It's also the mechanisms of how you run meetings. It can be simple things like that, which are part of a cultural fabric. For example, if you run meetings where everyone feels like they have a voice, and a lot of questions can be asked before a decision gets made, that being able to have meeting mechanisms that enable that. For example, publishing a document or a proposal and getting comments from a bunch of people well before the meeting enables everyone to be able to come and write there in the document, even if they are hesitant to express it in the meeting. And making sure that any decision or architectural approach or organizational approach incorporates all the feedback. That's a key part. And also being able to be cognizant of the body language in the room. It doesn't have to be that you're running the meeting. It can be you're just in the meeting and you can say, it looks like X is trying to say something or ask a question. Why don't we give him or her an opportunity? Like being able to give that voice when you can see from the body language. You have to be cognizant of what's going on in the meeting dynamics beyond the specifics and details. And giving a voice to anyone whom you're noticing needs that voice, whether you're running the meeting or not, whether you're the most senior person in the room or not, these things don't matter. You can be an ally. And just by saying that, I feel like you might enable 3 or 4 other people to just feel good asking questions. So it's simple mechanisms like that.
Wonderful. When you're thinking about body language, how does that translate to the environment we are in right now, where some people are in office, some people are not in office, some people are hybrid, all over the place with that? If somebody just routinely isn't on camera, for example.
It's so both things actually do help, even if you're not, even in the hybrid mode. As long as the person is on camera, you can still sense a lot in the body language, even if they're not there in person. But if they're off camera, you can still follow meeting general best practices of, before we move on to the next section, does anybody else have a point to raise? Or you can say, everyone from, sometimes we have multi-site meetings. So a gentle way to call out is, we haven't yet heard from this office. Do you have any thoughts here? We want to make sure it works for you too. So it's about how do you make them lean in, irrespective of whether they're able to turn the camera on or not. And I think there are different ways of helping them lean in. And, someone who is regularly on camera but has started turning off camera for some time, that actually itself is a signal. Maybe they're not feeling engaged. So it's something to pay attention to, but it's not to force the behavior of a person or micromanage, but just to say, is this person still leaned in? Are they not feeling included? Are they not feeling like they can express themselves? So even paying attention to that matters.
Wonderful. And we're starting to tread deeper into this larger topic of engineering leadership that I wanted to cover here. When it comes to people who are going to be leaders for your team, so your tech leads, the engineering managers under you as a senior tech engineering manager, what are the things that you're looking for when somebody is ready to take on that additional responsibility?
I think so. Leaders can be obviously groomed from inside as well as hired from outside. So maybe I'll give both the angles. So someone who's growing from the inside, for me, taking ownership, that trait of taking ownership and reaching for more is something I look for, because that shows their ability to own and drive things, and also their interest in taking on more. Their potential shows through these actions. So I always lean in and see if people bring that sense of ownership and sense of reaching for more. And also the ability to work with peers, whether it's inside my team or outside my team, and being able to influence and bring things to a consensus without needing a lot of hand-holding. This applies to anyone at any level. Those are the symptoms. And of course, there are times when they are going to need your support. Your role as a leader is partly to give them proactive support, and there are moments for that. But these are the symptoms that give me early signals that they're probably ready to take on more or move to the next level of leadership. So those are symptoms agnostic to what they own or the technical stack. And technology expertise and having credibility with the team, of course, matter. But those are almost like first principle requirements, and then this is beyond that. And when hiring from outside, I look for this thing that I think of as culture amplification. And I'm always trying to see if they're going to add something to my current leadership team, as in, can they enhance the culture and technological expertise as well? Sometimes I'm looking for someone who brings a background or domain expertise that my team currently doesn't yet have. And that's a good complement, so that the leaders can help strengthen each other and collectively can move the team up. And by cultural enhancement, what I mean is they come in with a willingness to question status quo, including my assumptions about where the team is headed. Are they able to think about it? Do they have demonstrated examples in their past career where they have questioned status quo and try to evangelize or influence something, including with the leader? Because I feel it's very energizing for teams to have a leader come in who brings that trait. So those are the broad set of things I look for.
Wonderful. And one of the phrases that I caught in there that I really liked was the evangelize or influence. And so when you're talking about evangelizing or influencing, and that's going to be true of your internal team as well as folks from outside, can you say for the audience, I have my own version of what evangelizing and influencing is, and we teach our clients specific ways of doing this, but what in your mind are positive signs of evangelizing for either your work or your team's work or work product, or influencing towards specific decisions that you would love to celebrate more?
I think being able to recognize that because of a business or product or cultural need, this engineering organization needs to move in a certain direction. First, being able to recognize that and get a sense of buy-in from others in terms of, do they see the need as well? Sometimes it could be, we got to double down on quality, we got to double down on something, or we got to improve our time to market, whatever it could be. Being able to recognize that thing and being able to work with the rest of the team in a way that they can see the need, they can buy into the need for this change, and also bring them just a sufficient balance of bringing others into the loop of, so how do we solve this? Now that we recognize this need, how do we solve this? While at the same time being cognizant of the point B. Being able to see the point B, but taking the team through influence, evangelizing, soliciting thoughts and input, but keeping the focus on moving in that direction to point B. To me, that's what I consider evangelizing and influencing. It's for an outcome that they could recognize and get the team to buy into.
What a wonderful segue into outcomes. Yay. So one of I know your core topics is building cool stuff and influencing the world through technology. And that's really what technology is there for. And it's something that we talk about with our people, and I've evangelized and influenced a lot on in my career. The software and the tech exists to solve a human problem. So when it comes to the human problems, you talked about, the Friday night issue. What about that excites you the most, really, to solve for that specific set of problems?
I think for me, it's just a lot of times the products that I have moved to work on, I feel like, does that resonate with me as a user? If I don't know everything about my professional side, does it resonate with me? And this is something I felt just resonated because I see all my friends going through it. I have experienced it, and I don't have to explain to anyone in my family, including in India, what I do, because this is something that touches everybody's life. Is how do you bring that relaxation right in the comfort of your home? And also, this is increasingly for a global audience. We see in our statistics that the average number of content apps that a person or a family has subscription to is only going up because you have people of different age groups. I see that it's true in your home, probably.
Yes, yeah. I've got a spreadsheet for it now.
You do?
Yes.
You're not in the minority, trust me. And so, we have kids who have their own apps, who have their preferred content, and we like to watch something. And even my husband and I, independently, we may watch something slightly different, but together we watch a certain thing. And it only gets more complex over time because just on Google TV, we have over 10,000 apps. And so it's millions and millions and millions of pieces of content that you need to bring in the same, 4x5 screen, because once you get past the first couple of rows of scrolling, the attention span is already gone. And we also, don't want families fighting with each other for what to watch and who has the remote control. And needless to say, as kids grow, the 3-year-olds watch something, as the same kid grows to 6 to 10 to 15, their choices change, and it's the same household, just having different fights over time. And then there's also the element of, I think, there is a social consciousness we need to be aware of. Like we have a kids mode, for example. So family and kids is something also, because TV is a communal device. So it's not like a personal device that we just choose what we want, we should watch. So there is a communal responsibility element, just because it's like the biggest surface in the home that everybody uses across all age groups. So just the sheer complexity of solving this actually excites me, partly. And also when I hear my own family say, we got this Google TV just so much easier, I find on the first row, most of the time I find the thing I'm going to watch. It's very immensely satisfying to hear something like that. And so for me, that's really what it is.
Excellent. Beautiful. And so as you sort of cultivate this experience for folks, what's something that you and your team are the most proud of from, say, the last year?
I think I could actually go on for hours if you let me on that.
I might.
A couple of things. I think, as I mentioned earlier, we launched this Google TV experience on Chromecast in 2020. And immediately we said, how do we scale it to our entire user base? And now it's on millions and millions of devices worldwide. And so being able to bring the complexity of Google TV, but let it run on a wide range of devices with different memory requirements, different physical hardware, seamlessly is something of immense pride for any engineering team. Like, how do you optimize the performance? How do you make sure its quality and reliability are so amazing that people just love it no matter where they live, what kind of networks they have? Because as I'm sure we all can relate to as TV users, even though smart TVs are actually computers, no one wants to restart a website on a TV, right? Like the expectations are just like the cable TV days. It's always on, it always works, and it's always quick to scroll. And it also gives me personalized recommendations now. It has to be intelligent too. So I think we've done a lot of amazing work that has helped us get a lot of positive feedback and photo text ratings across all our models. Which is, as you probably know, in consumer electronics, it's very, very difficult to achieve and stay for an extended period across models, across countries. And so a ton of work and thought has gone into that. So that's a thing of immense pride. And the second is just the user delight, because it's not just about building technology. It's about, at the end of the day, it's the consumer, the non-technologist consumer, enjoying what you're delivering to them. And we are consistently hearing getting very positive CSAT scores, positive feedback. And we constantly survey so that we can be constantly improving and keeping that credibility that is hard-earned. And so that user reception is the other thing I'm very, very proud of, that we have delivered what the users wanted and wanted.
Beautiful, beautiful. And it certainly doesn't help that you guys don't own the hardware side of things. So you can't say that it's always going to be running on the latest Qualcomm with this much available RAM. So it's going to have this performance. So yeah, that is not an enviable challenge. When it comes to keeping your folks on track, so your team members, and making sure that they're marching toward the beat of having that consistent experience, that consistent enjoyable experience, what's the tug of war between yay new features but it's got to perform on all of this hardware?
It's a great question. It's a balancing act that everyone in engineering has to do throughout their careers, I think. I think the first step that helped us is just moving to very data-driven decision making, data-driven observation. So we have built a lot of we invested a lot in data platforms as well as experimentation as a core framework, because we built a consumer product at the end of the day. And so we actually have things like even weekly reviews to look at in-field metrics from around the world, all device types, all features, how are we doing? We hear what we call like user feedback, partner feedback. We have a 360 view that we are pouring over data and feedback on a weekly, bi-weekly, very regular basis as a cross-functional team. And that helps us keep on top of how should the pendulum swing every sprint, every month, every quarter, so that we don't overcorrect in one direction altogether. We have the usual challenge of every engineering team under the sun, which is we never have enough resources to build all the features we want to do and all the quality work that we want to do. Every team I have ever worked on always has the challenge of finite resourcing, but infinite goals or possibilities. And it's all about, we feel like, making collective decisions about what do we say yes to, and more importantly, what do we say no to, and what do we say not now to. So all the three categories are possible in our discussions. And sometimes the no and not now do lead to heartbreaks for people who are championing the ideas. And so making sure that the team is coming along with us when we are making the decision, I think is a big part of finding the right balance. And also being able to say, we ship this feature, but it's not many people are using it. So should we discontinue to invest it less? So being able to have that transparent conversation about when a feature is not extreme as used as we thought it would be, or wasn't getting the results. And so I think just having that 360 view and having a team culture that's able to look at data, reason about it, and form conclusions and buy-in to move forward. I feel like those are the two mechanisms to balance things out.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I got to imagine being part of the larger Google umbrella where killing entire projects is something that happens fairly often. helps with that, you know what, that feature's not working, it's gone. Where another organization might feel like they're on the hook to support it forever and ever and ever.
Actually, throughout my career, I would say I've actually worked in startups with less than 30 people and companies with middle size, a few thousand people. And of course, Google and Yahoo was also on the larger company side when I worked there. I feel like this is a part of the culture that was there in all of them. It just took different forms. For example, in the startup I worked in, we used to have weekly sprints. So every sprint, we are talking about how did whatever we shipped in the previous sprint, how is that doing? Or previous 4 sprints ago, depending on how long it takes to collect feedback. And having the transparent conversation and saying, maybe we should put fewer people on that, and we should put more people on this other thing that more of our customers are actively using or asking for. I think as long as you have that culture to talk about it, to reflect on it, and the right level of data investment, even within a small company, it's possible to be data-driven for the things that matter. And I feel like then it's the same cultural and data mechanisms, just different scales and different specific mechanisms may be in play, but that essence is always there. It's been there in most of the places.
Wonderful. I'll turn it over to Jen to talk about the measuring things that matter and how you guys go about measuring things that matter. She's the resident stats and survey geek here. When it comes to your leadership, your specific leadership for you and your team, what are, beyond just interpreting the data and putting it into action in the field, what are some of the big challenges that you're excited about coming up?
I think for us, a few things are, how do you bring the next generation innovation to Google TV? What do our users want? And how do we continue to pursue the global expansion? For something like TV and content, global expansion, especially in regions outside the Americas, takes a lot of humility, research, asking for feedback, and really meeting with partners, listening to where they are going. So that's a big part of, I'd say, both the challenge and the opportunities. What's the next generation innovation and how do you bring it to a global audience? The second is, again, in this increasing, more competitive world, for any TV platform has 3 corners in the ecosystem. One is your end users, your consumers. The second is content partners, whom we talked a bit about. And the third is device partners. So where are they going? What do they see as success? For example, for our content partners, it's all about customer acquisition, retention, and engagement. So and for device partners, it's about how can I work on all the low tier devices, mid tier, top tier devices, and bring a consistent experience, which allows me to distinguish myself from the other device makers when somebody walks into a TV store or checks out online options. And so as a platform, we constantly need to think about how are we serving each of these 3 groups well and constantly balancing. So I feel like that's the second, I would say, multiplex challenge, which is excellent because the TV platform touches everybody's lives. And we could be bringing so much joy and value to so many users.
Wonderful.
Cool. So I'd love to switch gears. I'd love this conversation around outcomes and measurement and getting into in a fun way, getting into the weeds around leading teams and inspiring people and really celebrating outcomes. I love all of that. I'd love to shift gears only so slightly and talk about women in tech. So one of the ideas that you and your team pitched, Shobana, was women employees don't need crutches. I wish I could take credit for that particular phrase. It's fabulous. It resonates with me on so many levels. The fact that women employees don't need crutches, that I think that it aligns so much with what I'm all about as a leader, as a woman, as a coach. Is about empowerment. And it also, in a fun way, but it opens the door to a conversation about what empowerment truly looks like and what it doesn't look like. And it encourages all of us, women and men, everyone, to say, whether you're a leader or not, when might I have given that person crutches when I didn't need to? So talk to us about what this means to you and what's, you know, so like what's at the heart of this message, and how do you it's almost like a call to action to managers, to everyone around. Hey, get out of the way. I love you. Get out of the way, right? So what is it that called you to start talking about this? And what is it that you're doing and excited about in this area?
I'm so glad you touched upon this because this is very close to my heart, something that I have experienced both as a mentee and a mentor over time. The positive examples of not giving women crutches, rather empowering them in some ways by getting out of the way. I think for me, if you take a step back and think about what a leader does, it's about empowering everyone on your team to do their best. That is the role of a leader. And collectively for the team to do its collective best as a result. And by categorizing people based on demographics, there is something really healthy about that too, because we can analyze, we can look at data, we can look at how are we doing in the industry. So there's a lot of pluses to that. There is an unintended side effect that sometimes I have noticed, which is, oh, women need this kind of thing to succeed. No, but that's like, you know, you're talking about a few billion people. How could a few billion people all need the same things? so it's first of all not even intuitive. And the second is making assumptions like that actually make people sometimes not see the full potential of someone because of what they're already able to do. You don't need to enable them to do it. They already have it. Just let them show it. Just empower them to actually achieve their fullest potential. I can give a small tactical example of something I heard several years ago that got me thinking about this. So I was hiring in a new site to build up the new site, new location. And I saw that in the resume pipeline, I wasn't seeing any women for the first couple of months in the pipeline. This is a tech, pure engineering organization, of course. And I said, so why am I not seeing more pipeline? There's got to be, more women in STEM than this. And the interesting thing is this person was being very helpful, and they actually went and did some homework on what is why and so on. And they come back and tell me, so we just need to give them additional coaching so they can get through the interviews and screens and things like that. And I said, what are you talking about? It couldn't be that all women somehow need more support to just get through the interviews. They are going to the same colleges as the men, and they are probably even getting the same scores or higher scores than the men. So, this person was genuinely trying to help get the pipeline, but this was the kind of solution they were coming up with. And so I realized that the intent was good, but maybe there's some dots that were not connecting for me in my head. I said, there's got to be more to this. And so I actually said, every time we pass on a woman or a woman passes on our offer for some other group and it's not coming into the pipeline of people who are joining, I actually want to see the raw interview notes, the feedback. And I was just curious. I just wanted to dig in. And I said, just do this for the next 2 or 3 months. Every time we pass on a woman, just give me the raw interview notes, feedback notes. And what was interesting is, there is always a part of, coaching for everybody, not just women. So there's you need to help all candidates. So there could be that. But then there were things I was noticing which was related to, oh, this person didn't come across as confident. This person didn't communicate clearly or something like that. And then I felt away, these are not scientific conclusions. These are the opinions of the interviewer. And then we had a discussion. So, without giving away the individual person's details, I just extracted some patterns. I said, let's talk now about what we can do. And in addition to, interview coaching, which I feel always helps all candidates, gender neutral, it's a good step. We should do that. But I said, let's also train the interviewers and hiring committees about their own biases. So that's actually what we ended up doing too. In addition to the, bucket interview coaching, which helps everybody, we actually ended up training people to watch for certain things. And we said, we don't want you to actually include these kinds of things in the notes. Just give us the raw notes of how they approach the solution and what questions you asked. And then the conclusion of the how, the people who are reading the notes can form our own opinions. Because sometimes what you may think is necessary for the role may not even be necessary. The soft skills. And I'm just sharing that example of something that felt like a bit of a wake-up call to me, which I said, why was the automatic impulse of someone who genuinely wanted to help that some crutches had to be given to make women succeed? So that made me rethink even what I was doing as a mentor at that time. This is several years ago. And I said, maybe there is a refreshing approach, which is the combination of the two. There may be some that actually do need your help because they're outside their comfort zone. Maybe they've moved from one industry to another and all of that. But the main thing is to tailor it to the person of what they want versus what you assume they want. So I feel like that should be the core element of leadership when you're trying to make your team more diverse, inclusive, equitable. Just pay attention to what the person needs and not what you assume that group needs, whether it's based on gender or race or origin, country of origin, or even personality traits. Maybe not all introverts need the same set of things to be successful. So really being able to pay attention to what they need, I think it brings out the best in everyone in the teams. And a lot of women I know do feel like, I don't need this person kind of watching over me and helping me and keeping me in their umbrella. I just need to spread my wings and be given the larger opportunity. And lo and behold, maybe they do even better than the mentors in that role. And so being able to be self-aware as a mentor or a manager who is trying to be an ally, and being able to see, this person brings everything to the table. I just need to take out the shadow that I am creating over them and let them spread their wings and fly. I think is very important to actually truly internalize as a leader.
Yeah, that's such a wonderful story, such a great example of when you let people shine and just watch what's possible. That's actually what's better for everyone than trying to control a situation and make assumptions. And there's so many biases. Like our brain is almost wired. I'm not a neuroscientist, but I believe it's true that our brain is wired for bias because there's so much information, and how are we supposed to make sense of all of it? So we create these cognitive shortcuts. And one of the cognitive shortcuts that a lot of people have made, women and men, is that women need more help. Women need even more coaching. Women need to be told what to do. They need these crutches. They appreciate these crutches. When your point is so well taken. All the women in all the world? Is that actually true? So yeah, I think that this is again, it's a call to action. What does get out of the way mean? What it means is asking, what do you want? That's what I've taken from what you said. As far as like actionable items for folks in tech, for leaders, for folks who are wanting to, and look, this is applicable in so many realms of life. What do you want? And for so many people, this is why also the idea of training, people have to be trained how to do this. Mm-hmm. I don't think that this is something that we're biased toward doing. It's just having a conversation where you're just the vessel. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you want. Okay, cool. Okay, let me get super curious about, and what would that mean for you? And is there something else that you want? And what would happen once you get that? People do need to be trained to have those conversations. And I think it also goes back to what you were saying toward the beginning around asking what might seem like stupid, I'm using air quotes here, or simple questions are actually sometimes the most powerful. Like if I think of like interviewers who I really look up to, like Barbara Walters or Terry Gross from NPR, the questions, yes, they ask extremely nuanced questions, for sure. They also, because they're excellent in what they do, and that's their zone of genius, they also ask very simple questions like, and how would that make you feel? I think for most people, they don't think to ask it because it might feel too simple, or I don't want to go there. But when is the last time, I'm asking to viewers out there, or listeners, when is the last time you sat down with one of your direct reports during a one-on-one and asked them how they're feeling? And so that's another version of what do you want. So I think it's so important. Don't make assumptions. Check your biases, and let people shine. I love it. I love it. Do you have particular practices, like tactical, practical kinds of things that you do? Maybe it's during one-on-ones, maybe it's during group meetings that if people wanted some examples about, okay, how can I start implementing this kind of mindset right away of empowering people as opposed to giving them crutches?
Actually, some of the mechanisms that I have noticed or leveraged, I think may sound fairly simple. For example, if you have the practice of doing, say, quarterly check-ins or annual check-ins or biannual, by sending a note to them before that meeting where you're going to be discussing and doing check-ins, you can say, please give some thought to where you'd like to go in your career and how I can help you in that journey. It's very simple. Just put that in, and they will come in with and that just opens the channel, because a lot of times people hesitate if they're just getting to know their manager, especially. They hesitate to bring up I want to grow in my career. Still, people do, whether it's male or female. And by doing that, two things get accomplished. One is you have opened the channel of communication and given them a safe space to bring the topic up. And the second is you're also letting them drive how you can participate and how. And so a lot of times people come in with a lot of thought processing. I want to do this. I feel like this is what will take me to the next level, but I need you to unblock this because I know this other team, I'm going to have a dependency on them. So being able to give them the feeling that they are in power to navigate their own career journeys, and you're there to help, like landing both those messages. The second is, especially when I'm just getting to know someone who joined my team, I always talk about, if I'm helping you too little or too much, let me know. So, because the too much is in some ways just a diplomatic term for micromanagement, maybe, right? And it's all a perception. It's not what you do, but how the other person experienced it. And so by just checking that, I'm happy to back off. If you think I'm too involved in initiatives, I'm happy to back off. Just let me know. So just like you yourself initiating that conversation makes them feel like it's so easy to say it, to say, I got this. So those are the two, they are very simple mechanisms, but by you initiating that, your direct report is going to feel very, very comfortable saying those things and expressing where they need your help. And not just in that meeting, but anytime in the future, you just kind of open the door for that communication to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to ask a very broad brush. It's an intentionally general question, and I really just want you to take it and run with it, because I know this is a topic that's really close, near and dear to your heart. How are we doing in tech in terms of diversity? So not just women, in the way that we treat women, but just in terms of the whole treating everyone the way that they deserve to be treated. And I ask this because I know that you have had a career in tech that spans multiple decades, and also that this is something that's very near and dear to your heart. Are you seeing shifts? How are we doing?
Thank you so much for asking this question. I've thought about it since I was a student, those decades ago that I was talking about. I think we have come a long way if I compare 10 years ago versus now. I think we should be proud of a lot of progress. At the same time, there's a lot more to do. I have the opportunity to be on the board of a nonprofit organization that actually helps girls reach higher education and better career choices, irrespective of the zip code they grew up in and the socioeconomic factors that may be holding back. This is something I spend time every week thinking about. And for me, until tech has brought every single billion of the world, 7 or 8 billion or more people in the world in, where they feel like right from where they are, they could be doing anything they want using tech. Until maybe they shape tech or maybe they use tech. Until we've achieved that goal, I feel like we can never call it done, which is why I feel like we have a long way to go. So to your point, there's gender, there's racial, there's personality trait based, or there's sexual orientation. There are so many things. And some of them we have made progress, some of them we are just starting to recognize the impact of not bringing those in. And there are so many other biases and constraints for a person in the progress that we haven't even yet recognized, because we're not even talking to the entire global audience yet. which is why I feel like there's just so much more to do for us to learn, collect data, translate it to action, and really get that flywheel going for every single demographic and socioeconomic group that we can think of in human life.
Are there one or two particular areas that are close to your heart right now within this conversation about diversity in tech that you really want people to know about, either because they're close to you and you're passionate about them, or maybe because they are more of these kind of under the radar kinds of things, kinds of behaviors that are happening that you want to just give a voice to?
I think in a lot of it is, I would say, continuing and amplifying the work that is happening in the industry. Maybe I'll mention two things. One is, I think more and more women or other minority groups moving into more board positions, senior leadership positions in companies. I feel like we need to do a lot more there, because the voice of people in these levels and positions actually affects the entire culture of not just that company, but the entire industry. I think we've done a good job of women in tech and leadership roles compared to, again, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I think the voice that people in the board have, the voice that people who are CEOs or Fortune 500 companies have, in how much they can influence the culture in their multi 100,000 people companies, as well as in the industry itself, is disproportionate. And so having more representation from diversified backgrounds at those levels, I think, is important for the entire industry to have step function changes, rather than just organic, every level just trying to make change at their level. That's one big thing. And the second is, I think, just truly making sure the code of a person doesn't matter for how they do in their life. I think we all should take a moment to reflect and give at least a few hours every month thinking about it and translating it to action. Because it actually matters a lot. We're missing out on so much amazing potential talent just because they don't live in a certain place or a certain country, or they don't have a certain kind of education or language that helps them. And every time I'm part of these nonprofits or I interact with students, I feel like, wow, this person is so much smarter than so many people I've seen, but they're stuck in this situation where they have such an uphill battle. And I see that in our country, in America, I see that in many other countries. So I really think everyone who has a voice should spend at least a few hours thinking about what action they can take, small or big, to make sure zip code does not matter for somebody's life outcomes.
So well said. So well said. So let's talk about your career to the extent that you're willing to talk about. As we say, we are career coaches. After all, we love learning about people's career paths. So I'll kick this off, and then I want Rod to ask some questions around this as well. Again, if you're willing. But how do I want to kick this off? How did you end up where you are right now in your career?
This is one of those simple questions, but it takes some reflection to answer.
Yeah. Again, keeping it general, so take it and run with it, however you want to run with it.
But the simplest questions have the most complex answers sometimes. I think from a young age, I just like building and fixing stuff. I feel like that was my impulse. And I really think that's what got me to where I am, because I've always gravitated towards how can I build something that's cool? How can I fix something that's not quite perfect, whether it's at home or outside. And I think, so I keep listening to things, and that's why even the social causes that I'm part of, it's coming from the same mindset, I feel. And that's what drew me to engineering, to pursue engineering as a student, first of all. And when I think of, when did I get exposed to engineering? It's actually back when I was a pre-teen, I think, because my dad was a mechanical engineer by training, and he loved fixing everything at home. He never wanted to take the scooter or car to the body shop, like we call it workshop in India. He would want to just fix it. It stopped in the middle of the street. He would fix it and get it back running, actually. And even though he had no training in electronics, if something was wrong with our TV, he would just be brave, open up the back. He would figure out something that's not quite right. And most of the times he actually got these things working. And a lot of times, the assistant who would get him whatever spanner or some tool or something from wherever it was at home was me. And so even if there was a piece of furniture that was broken, we knew how to fix it. So I think that just made it fun, and it felt like, oh, this is easy. Start like, getting cars to work or whatever it is, just felt easy to me. And as I was graduating from high school, in India, actually, you can apply to medical school right out of your high school. You can apply directly. So I actually had admission to medical school and engineering school. And I actually chose engineering over medicine. And that was mainly because I enjoyed logic and getting things to work. So I felt like that's what I wanted to do the rest of my life. And I feel like that's still true. So in all my career switches, I've gravitated towards, am I going to build cool things and am I going to work with cool people? And that's basically it.
That's awesome. Oh, that so resonates. Thank you so much for sharing. I can absolutely relate on so many levels. Specifically, I had a similar med school, or for me, it was psychology, right? Like, so do I want to be pre-med, or do I want to go all in on being a psychology major? And I chose being a psychology major because that's what was fun to me. I love the human mind. I love human behavior. So I think there's something to be said around, follow what's fun. People say follow your passion all the time, but I think this is what it means, right? If I have these two things, what am I just generally gravitated toward? What's going to be fun? I'm doing this 20 years from now? Yeah, cool, awesome. That's so great. That's so great.
It's interesting to hear your story as well. And, a big part of that is also you want parents who are not in the way of you pursuing what you think is called to. So I'm glad I have parents who supported not just my pursuing engineering over medicine, which was more traditional for girls in my family to pursue actually, but also for moving across the ocean and pursuing higher studies in engineering. So I didn't have to debate a lot. I didn't have to do anything. It was just, I was interested. My dad thought I would be good at it, and he just, supported. I just moved here.
There you go. Rob, I'm passing the baton to you.
I'm still laughing at I was accepted into medical school and engineering school, and I could have gone into medicine, but I like logic, so I went engineering instead. Because there's nothing logical about the functioning of the human body. So let's just embrace that and go and fix things where there's a qualified, yes, we fixed it kind of a thing.
Yeah. At least you know how it's supposed to work.
Yes, yeah. So an interesting piece that I find, so your story about growing up with your dad fixing things and having you as an assistant, that I have a similar upbringing where, my dad got our first computer in the early 80s, and the first thing we did when we got it home was take it apart. And as a person who at that point in time was in kindergarten, I was there helping and playing with stuff and putting things in, whatever. Understanding that these are knowable, understandable components that when you sum them up, become this whole, is one of those getting over the fear of taking it apart lessons that has to happen if you're going to be an engineer. The same thing has to happen with people too, for you to understand that it's okay to go into engineering leadership, because now you're taking apart people and putting them back together again, mentally and figuratively, but not literally. What was the moment that allowed you to step from, I work in logic and fixing real things and working with software that can compile, to I'm going to work with people who don't necessarily compile?
That is interesting. But by the way, I should say this is the first time I've heard of people being characterized as things that don't compile. So that is interesting. I had the opportunity to be like a TL, technical lead, and a mentor to other engineers who didn't report to me before I moved into management. So I think the joy of being a mentor motivated me to think about management. That was one element. And the second is, as I had been, implementing code for a good decade and longer, I felt like eventually I know that this is supposed to work. When I'm writing code, I always know what the eventual outcome is, that it works. It's just me figuring out how to make it work. That's a very oversimplification, but that's kind of what you do when you're coding. And then I thought it would be kind of exciting to take on open-ended puzzles where you actually don't know how it's going to work out. So I think for me, it's the going from the puzzles I know the outcome of to puzzles I don't know the outcome of that got me excited. And something I do kind of enjoy is putting myself outside the comfort zone. And it's almost like my comfort zone is outside the comfort zone because I can get bored if I get too comfortable. So,
Yes.
so this was very interesting for me that you become responsible for a team and you don't actually know how it's going to mutually work out, but you're going to give it your best. You're going to help the employee, the other person, achieve their best. So for me, it's the open-ended nature of the puzzle that's human people management that drew me to it.
Wonderful. So that's what originally drew you there. Was there any point in time when you were looking at the concept of engineering leadership or the concept of upward movement in engineering leadership and thought, you know what, maybe not for me, I'm not ready?
For some reason, maybe thanks to great mentors and managers I had, I don't actually feel like I had a moment where I didn't think it was for me.
Yay.
But there were many moments where I did feel like I could have done that. That I did have, but I don't remember thinking this is not for me. It's
Wonderful.
more of a how can I become better? That wasn't quite ideal, but I could do better in the future and learning and hearing feedback and improving. That has happened over time. But I don't feel like I ever questioned that this was the thing for me.
Excellent. A through line I'm seeing, and correct me if I'm off track here, is that we started with talking about being fearless about asking questions. And we talked about being fearless in the face of new challenges and new adventures, both the crossing the ocean, coming into a new economy and a new space and a new culture, coming into a new work environment, being no fear when you're looking at physical hardware and physical mechanical things, no fear when you're looking at the software, no fear at looking at how you're going to be perceived when you do this or you do that, and let's just go see how it works. And no fear when it comes to getting into leadership. How much would you attribute that to your personal success?
Now that you mention it, maybe it is one of my defining characteristics. I feel like you created a thread of so many different events that I myself thought of as just different events that shaped me. I think being able to be outside your comfort zone without feeling fear, I think it's very important for anyone to be successful and to feel successful all the time. Like there are many people who others may think are successful, but they may not be satisfied. That's why I want to emphasize the feeling successful from the inside, because what I loosely call setbacks don't matter to you. You're always feeling good because you're looking to what can I do next with what I learned or what went well or didn't go well. So I feel like that's important to feel successful. And in addition to that, I feel like I've also had a lot of mentors and managers along the way who have helped me feel good, irrespective of whether I made a blunder or I made a mistake. And these have been in my personal life, these have been in my professional life. Sometimes you don't realize that people in your family are mentors because they don't think of themselves like that and you don't. But they are playing that role because
Wonderful.
of how they influence you. So I think that mattered too.
So given that we're reflecting on this, how big of a feature would you say celebrating the process more than the outcome has influenced that for you?
It's funny you asked me this question because my husband and I are always debating about which of these is important, because we both, have known each other now for a quarter of a century almost, and he thinks of himself as the I enjoy journey. I don't get bogged down by just the outcomes person, and I am seen more by my family as, oh, she does care about outcomes. She's goal-oriented. She may enjoy the journey too, but what percentage? So our children see us both as different complementary personalities here. But I do think the journey matters a lot, especially when it's towards an outcome that you're passionate about. That's the way I would blend the two things. Because I think the outcome is what makes you feel the passion. I want to build X. I want to build a rocket. I want to build the best TV experience in the world. So I feel like the outcome is what drives your brain to feel passion, is because you can see what can become. And then you enjoy the journey because of the people you work with, the steps you take, the ideas, the crazy approaches that you take and experiment. So I feel like you cherish the journey. It matters a lot. Because when we're talking about careers, we're talking about a few decades worth of your life. So you better be enjoying the journey to really stay with that energy all the way through and to cherish it. I feel like an outcome that drives your passion is still very important for you to enjoy the journey.
Yes, having a big why is how we talk about that too. That is excellent. And Jen and I are also in the Quarter Century Club. So congratulations on surviving this long, and your husband surviving this long as well. I'm more outcome focused than Jen. Jen is definitely journey focused. In fact, she's looking so forward to the next part of a journey. That's usually what we're celebrating. So when it comes to how you and your husband are negotiating this back and forth, what would be a typical kind of back and forth on that?
It could probably be something like an outcome I'm thinking of in my career, for example. And both of us have had this relationship where we act like peer mentors. When we're trying to give a talk, we talk to each other about what content we're going to put in, and even talk in front of the other person and get input. We've done that throughout as well. It would be something like that, and I'd be thinking about, so how do we make this outcome happen, and this and that, and he's like, but do you like this part, or do you like the people who are like, he'll get into those aspects as well, and vice versa too. Like when he's thinking about the outcomes could be this or the other. How do you make it convergent, at least in your head, of what the intended outcome is? So I think both of us drive each other towards the other corner that we wouldn't go on our own. So
wonderful.
That tends to be the nature, but this is all topics, including raising our children. Like it can happen in all topics. And in many ways, it's interesting that you talked about you and Jen, what you tend to gravitate towards too. I feel like it's almost like the opposites balancing each other is what gets you to the quarter century and beyond. Actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's amazing how much of the out of work experience influences the in work experience and beyond. So you mentioned having teenagers and now one who's survived beyond teenagerhood, which congratulations for that as well. Our son has visited with me in the office sometimes, and many people have noted that I treat my son and my teams in very similar manners. I talk to them in very much the same way, and the two are influencing each other all the time. I'm grateful to hear that your relationship is also feeding back into your leadership, and your leadership is feeding back into your relationship too.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think our dinner tables have been, opportunities for debate since our kids were preteen. And once you get used to that, everything you say is going to be reacted to with a counterpoint, if not more. You just get used to I may not be right all the time, even if I want to be, or have developed that element of leadership called humility. Your teenagers are quick at critiquing you, putting you on the spot, criticizing your products when you have a test version running on your TV, and submitting bugs. So they can help in all ways in evolving evolving you as a leader.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm often criticized for other people's bugs too, because I'm the resident techie usually. So even products I had nothing to do with, why isn't this working? Make this work. I can't make this work. I don't work there.
Just wave a magic wand and it'll work,
Absolutely. Oh man, I love this conversation about outcome versus journey. I'd agree that I am more naturally oriented toward the journey and toward the experience. And I'm also very grateful to have many mentors throughout my life who reminded me about outcomes and goal setting and all of that. Naturally, I'm like, goal setting, and then I became a career coach, right? So it's like we're often asking clients, what are your goals? And I can come at it from a perspective of like, look, I never really liked that question either, but it's important to have like, what's the next waypoint? What's your North Star? So it's so important to have that balance between I'm moving toward this North Star and I'm enjoying the experience along the way. And it's, oh man, that's like everything. It feels like everything. Like if you can get that balance down, you're doing pretty well. I could tell that is part of why you've been so successful, Shobana, is that ability to balance. You have the outcome, but you're detached from it just enough where it's like, okay, I can enjoy the experience along the way. So I love it.
Definitely. I think the balance is needed when you're taking on a long-term initiative or a long-term career, because the outcome you want, it may not quite happen the perfect way you want. That happens all the time in careers. But if the journey was worth it, you always feel better after. So that's why I don't know if I have the perfect balance of the two things, but I'm always striving every day to be cognizant of both.
Yeah, I think that's what it's all about. That's what I would say. It's I don't want perfect. I want to move toward that, chasing it, knowing that I might not ever actually attain it by having fun along the way. So exactly. So speaking of having fun, this has been such an enlightening, wonderful conversation. We covered so many topics. I've taken some really good notes about what we've covered in terms of the topics and really diving deep into them. So it's been an absolute pleasure speaking. Shobana, is there anything else that you wanted to ask Rob before we like officially wrap things up?
No,
I want to see what Shobana wants to ask about.
Yeah, that would be my next. I have two more questions. My penultimate question: is there anything else that you want to ask, Shobana?
No, I think we're good. This was a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I really loved how a lot of points actually resonated with you, with your backgrounds and careers as well. And I think I picked up some marriage tips along the way as well.
For sure.
I'm always curious about what both of you help people with their career journeys. And you've had so much impact in the industry through direct coaching as well as, I'm sure, indirect through such podcasts and other things you may have published. What do you see as the, top couple of challenges most people face as they're navigating their own career journeys?
Wow. Oh, man. Thank you for asking that. You want to go first, Rob, or do you want me to take a stab?
Well, I think I'll take a stab. So one of the things that came easily for you, Shobana, was that fearlessness. When we're talking to a lot of folk, what we're getting for a good portion of our clientele is that the people in the C-suite, the people who are VP and above even, are black boxes to them because they've been in organizations where management was kept separate from everybody else. They know the engineering side. They don't have any training with the people side. So they've built up in their mind what it means to be in that space. And that has prevented them from trying to delve into it too far. So having that fearlessness is something we coach people into, and we're help people to overcome. And I feel like it's enough of a thread that I know to look for it when we're talking to people for the first time.
That's really good.
Yeah. What I would say is that the two biggest problems that I see, if I were to look for the threads across the hundreds of technical leader clients that we've coached, two of them are lack of clarity and lack of confidence. So lack of clarity. I actually don't know what I want. I thought I knew what I wanted, but nobody ever asked me, like we talked about, what do I really want? Like, what do I really, really want? I'm not just like what other people are telling me that I should have. Oh, I guess I should go into AI right now because that's hot. Well, do you want to? That was an actual conversation that we had with a client that was like, whoa, that's a great question. I don't know that that's actually what I want to do. I thought that I just needed to do that because that's where the jobs are. So that clarity is a huge piece of it. And even the being unconsciously incompetent in that area, not even knowing that you need clarity, like not even knowing that that it is something to address. And then, okay, I'm consciously incompetent. Got it. I don't have clarity, but at least I know that now. So now I can move up to being consciously competent in how do I get this clarity and how do I move forward? And then the other piece, the confidence piece, and this is absolutely related to fear, right? What's the reason you don't have what you want? You're scared. That would be like that's what I would put on a poster. You don't have what you want because you're scared. And so it's leaning into that fear and leaning into well, I don't have the confidence to do that. Well, where to go? Shedding some light on it, opening the door, but seriously, how can you find that confidence within you? And I think that that's one of the huge breakthroughs for a lot of our clients is knowing that if you're looking, it's like you're looking for love in all the wrong places, you're looking for confidence in all the wrong places. If you're looking for it externally, that's why you haven't found it, that confidence is within you. And once you learn in your own way, right? So you can lean on psychology, you can lean on spirituality or a religion or whatever mental model you want to be able to say, yeah, I can find that confidence within myself. Like saying, here's what I'm scared of. And I'm going to make it mean that I'm going to face everything and rise. Also, one of my favorite posters. What does fear mean? Face everything and rise. So yeah, thank you for asking, because that's definitely kind of brings together a lot of the themes that we like to talk about.
Thank you. That really resonates. Both your points resonated a lot.
Yeah. So last question, hopefully it's the easiest question I've asked today. How can people follow you? They want to find you online and follow your thoughts and your wisdom. What's the best place to follow you?
Sure. LinkedIn is the best place to reach out to me and connect. I use that as my primary way for the professionals. I could stay connected. And I always love connecting on any topic, about whether it's technology or just trends or career or media as a space. I love to connect with like-minded people.
Wonderful. Excellent. Well, thank you for taking the time today, Shobana. It's been an absolute pleasure spending time with you and chatting and picking your brain. And I know that our listeners are going to get a lot of value out of hearing our conversation today. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Jen and Rob. It was an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and it made me also reflect on all the fun elements of the journey that I've had so far. So thank you for the wonderful question.
Look forward to chatting again soon.
Perfect.
Likewise.